Recording started.
All right, so it looks like we are good to go now. Got through all of those technical hurdles. So hey everybody, my name is Kenny Spade. I am talking today about bringing mobile phone development to the classroom. What I'm going to be doing is walking you through some of the things that we've got. I have a sample syllabus that we are currently developing for doing some application development on the mobile platform. I'm also going to walk you through a kind of a how-to on building an application and how to build a game, depending on how much time we have left now. So I'll get as far as I can in both of those things. And then if you take a look at the handout that we had on that final page, there is a bunch of additional resources on the back, including the last one there, additional resources. That's me, Kenny Spade. I am an academic developer evangelist. So I would like you guys to treat me as a resource. If you need anything, feel free to contact me, and I will do my best to see what I can do for you guys. So again, this type of information is on that last page. Got my email address, got my blog on there. So who am I? I am Kenny Spade. I actually graduated from a community college up north, Shasta College. At the time, I wasn't really sure what I was trying to do, so I was just taking every class in computers, every class in math, every class in physics, just because they were all fun. And ended up graduating and about to transfer to a university. Went to the industry as a software developer. Stayed there for about 5 years, and then went back to school to finish up my 4-year degree because I knew that if I was going to advance anywhere, I would need that 4-year degree. So I finished that up, and right after I graduated there, that was at Cal State Chico. Graduated there and went to work for Microsoft as an academic developer evangelist. So in my role as an academic developer evangelist, like I said, I want you guys to treat me as a resource because that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make me available to help you guys out in developing curriculum, in doing presentations for your classes, in getting access to software. And then we also have a bunch of other things that we're doing. For example, something called the Imagine Cup. How many people know about the Imagine Cup? That is good. So for those of you who don't know, it is a student competition where we get students from around the world to compete by developing software, developing games, doing digital media, having IT challenges. And the focus around this is solving the world's toughest problems. So they're able to use software and develop games to help address problems like the UN Millennium Goals. Things like poverty, world hunger, HIV and AIDS, maternal health. All of which can be solved or at least addressed with software, games, digital media. And so we try and get them access to that. So if you want that T-shaped student, this is a great way to do that. We're actually doing some events coming up here in February where we're going to be doing 2 half-day events, and we're still looking at where they're going to be located in the exact dates. But the first event is going to be around soft skills like doing design goals, doing presentation skills, ideas on how to turn your idea into a startup. And then the second event would be getting the technical skills that you need to compete as well. And that's for basically general knowledge, but also for competition in the Imagine Cup. So one of the other things that I do is give students access to software. This is the DreamSpark site. DreamSpark gives all students throughout the world, as many of them as possible, access to our software development tools. So things like Windows Server, Visual Studio. We give you access to the Windows Phone Marketplace. Students have the entry fee waived. Expression Studio. So a lot of tools which, if you go for the professional level tools, are rather expensive. We want to give those to your students for free. We also have a program called the MSDN Academic Alliance, which is specifically for technical departments. So if you're in a tech department, you should have this. If you don't have this for whatever reason, if it's budget or whatever, talk to me. I'll see what I can do to get it to you. And budget should not be a problem if this is something that you're interested in. And again, this gives you access to everything that was over on DreamSpark, but it also gives access to faculty. It gives you software so that you can use it in your labs, and it gives you the ability to have instead of something like 20, 30 applications, it gives you 300 applications to choose from. So pretty much everything Microsoft produces except for Word, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Yeah?
I remember a couple of years ago that it was free to all STEM programs via a deal with community college foundations.
I believe that is
no longer going.
I believe that's still the case, but I'm not sure exactly the details of that. I know that my counterpart down in Southern California helped set that up. And it may have been that it was, because I've heard this before where, you know, a department has access to it, but not everyone in the department. And for whatever reasons, be they political or, you know, whatever, we can get around those problems.
Yeah, this way, that's Sam you're referring to?
Yes, Sam Schlick.
Yeah, that's who's told us about that. It was through the CCC Foundation. We're able to have all these different STEM programs on a single campus, each have their own.
Right.
That's a great deal.
Okay, yeah, so that was through the CCC. Basically, the comment was we did work with CCC on getting access to everybody, you know, all of the community colleges in California. So that should be the case. Not everybody here, I don't think, is from California necessarily, so we can still do that outside of California. Again, you can talk to me. I can get you in touch with your local academic evangelist. So let's go right into it. How many people are familiar with the fact that we just released a new phone? Okay, so we released this in November, along with a set of developer tools. We actually released the developer tools a couple of months before the device, and we have, last statistics that I saw, 22,000 registered developers and 5,500 applications in the marketplace from the last 2 months. So we've got a lot of momentum going as far as developing new applications, getting everything onto the phone. And the way that we set everything up was through basically the tile system and the hub system. So you've got these different tiles which represent your applications. Some of them are hubs where you can jump into your email, you can jump into people, and it gives you additional information that you can go into. So what I'm going to be showing today is how you can develop your own applications, get your own tile on the front page there, put it up onto the marketplace, and have your students start making money off of an assignment that they did in class. So basically what's built in, we wanted to make sure that every phone, because there are a number of different manufacturers that we're working with, has the same baseline. That was really important for us because we wanted to make sure that if you developed a single application for a single model, it would work across every handset. So some of the things that we did was going through touch. So you have 4 points of multi-touch on there. I'm going to be showing you that in the game. We have the same browser across those, and it was just released recently that a future update will also include support for HTML5. So right now we're running a previous version of our browser. We will be releasing Internet Explorer 9 for mobile with HTML5 support. We have a music, videos, and photo hub, and there's a way that you can integrate your application with that. We have a lot of communication where you can use APIs to communicate with some of the existing contacts on the phone and be able to get access to the web. We have integrated maps, so you can plug into that. And then we also have applications and games through that marketplace. So the two different types of applications. We actually based our application development platform on some existing tools that we had been using, which actually makes it really great for existing .NET developers because they suddenly are mobile developers without having to learn any additional skills. The first one is through Microsoft Silverlight. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, it was originally developed as a web plugin, so for rich internet applications. So you can develop applications to take advantage of streaming media and anything you would need to do with interaction on the web. And that plugs directly in. It's great for developing applications on the phone. And on the other side, you have XNA, which is originally developed as a hobbyist platform for the Xbox 360, which gives you full support for 3D development on the phone as well. So Silverlight, as I mentioned, was originally targeting the web. It's cross-browser, cross-platform, which means that it works on Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, and Chrome in the latest version, and across PC and Mac. And you can install that to your machine from the website using something called Out of Browser on both the PC and Mac. And then on the Windows Phone 7, we're actually running Silverlight 3. The current version that's released for the web is Silverlight 4. But they are very compatible as far as what they work with. So you could actually have one application running in both scenarios. Gives you pre-built UI and controls, composited in Windows video, browser control so you can get access to the internet, a soft keyboard so you can do the typing on the screen directly, Familiar experience for web developers, as I mentioned, that's where it came from. And it also gives you keyframe animations, which is one of the things I'll be showing you. XNA, on the other side, works with Windows Phone 7, the Xbox 360, and Windows. If you worked with earlier versions of XNA, XNA 3.0 would also work with the Zune and the Zune HD. We dropped support for that at the 4.0. So it basically, each phone has a Zune built into it, so the new Windows phones support XNA 4.0. There's some additional hardware, though, so it can't work with both. It gives you this update and draw looping structure. This is the way that you can get access to 3D graphics. Gives you full screen video. You have a content pipeline project, which makes things really easy to consume if you're working with 3D models, audio, any of those things that come into a game. Gives you hardware acceleration. Graphics hardware acceleration, meaning that you can do some things on the GPU so you don't have to bog down the CPU with your development. And also dedicated hardware scaling, which means that if you draw things small and then have it scale it up, it does all of that on the GPU so you don't get really a performance hit. So on the Silverlight side, I am going to create an application. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to do a standard Hello World type application. And then I'm going to play a quick animation on there using the storyboarding. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. So this has to be taking up part of my screen. Is that? Can I minimize that at all?
Yeah.
Let's see. How would I do that? Can I just? It's kind of. All right. I'll do as much as I can with this small space. So this is Visual Studio. This is actually the Express version, so it's free for everybody. So you can go onto the website and download that. There's a link to that on the document that I gave you guys. So what we're going to do is
be able to configure your Illuminate window to be
mini controller layouts.
For the layout, you can choose different layouts. So it works. Yeah. Here, the layout would be
Aha!
there.
Can you still see it over there?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So we're going to create a new project here. And so what I'm going to do, you'll notice you have Silverlight and XNA. I'm going to start with a Silverlight application. And it gives you a little bit of a preview over here what you're going to get. And I'm just going to leave the default name and everything because that is not important to what I'm showing you guys. So when I do this, what it does is it creates this kind of what you see is what you get display over on this side, and then it shows all of the code that goes into it on the back end. So that's called XAML. It's the Extensible Application Markup Language. It's a variant of XML. And you could go over here and edit all of this by hand, but I really don't recommend that because you just do some drag and dropping over here and it's all great. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, show what happens if I just run the application. So it brings up the emulator here, which is actually running the exact same ROM that you would run on the phone. So anything that works on here is going to work on your phone as well. There are a few things that can't be emulated, such as accelerometer or GPS, because you just don't have them in your PC. But most of the stuff will just come over on here. So you can see it's running my application, and if I wanted to, I can do stuff in here, but there's nothing that I can do. If I hit the back button, it closes my application, and I see that I'm running the base OS. There's my application. It was installed into here. So what I'm going to do is the Hello World thing. So click a button. I want to change this thing that says page name over to Hello World. So this text block right over here is named page title, you can see. So what I'm going to do is go over to the toolbox, drag a button, drop down to here, and when I double click this, it brings up the code behind. So the code behind in this case is running C#. There's also a beta right now for VB.NET. If that's the curriculum that you use, you can use that beta. But the primary language that we're using on here is C#. So on here, I have that page title. I just want to say page title.text is equal to hello world. I run that and brings up. Yes, so I'm using Visual Studio 2010 Express for Windows Phone.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll also integrate into anything else if you have Professional or Ultimate or any of those.
That's the one that you were saying that it doesn't have the documents yet.
Right, so the question was, this one does not have VB.NET. That is correct because there is a separate project. We will be integrating the two of them so that you can get one or the other and they'll both run in the same kind of scenario here. I have not installed the VB.NET. I don't really like VB.NET. It's a personal preference thing. What's that? They have not announced it yet because the Visual Basics.NET is still in beta, so they haven't announced a release date for that yet. So here we're running our application. I've got my page name right up here. I've got the button, and when I click on the button, there we go, hello world. So now I want to do something a little bit more. That's where we have another application called Expression Blend that gives you more of a designer type of interface for developing applications. So if I bring up Expression Blend, the way that we kind of set this up, everything in here is all text. You saw the XAML is the markup, it's just text. The setup that we have on Visual Studio, all the code behind is just text. So it's really easy to put it into revision control. It's really easy to switch back and forth between the two of them. So if I actually go to Project and open an existing project, if this lets me. Okay, here we go. Open project and pop over to Visual Studio. I did Phone Application 2. It will give me the same setup that I had last time. So there's my button, and I can go through and do everything on this. So what I'm going to show you on here is using the object and timeline. I'm going to create a new storyboard. I'm going to call that one Storyboard 1. And let me grab a graphic real quick because I moved it off my desktop. So now I'm going to pop over and grab that. There we go. And let's grab this star. What I will do is actually first drop out of this, go in here, drag and drop this star onto the page. And there's that star. What I want to do is I want to open that storyboard, and I want to say that after 1 second, I want this to be here. And you can see that if you hit play, it'll preview it for you, and so the thing moves across. But I don't want it just to fall. I want it to fall and also spin around. So we do that, I hit play, it falls and spins. But I can also move in here and go notice that we've got the little render transforms. In the Y direction, I want it to bounce. So I want it to actually fall and then bounce. So we've got these easing functions over here. Let's just do the bounce. And I hit play on this. And there it goes. So now I've got that all done. I just go ahead and close the storyboard. Same kind of thing.
The speed of bouncing?
Yes. So what happened was I said that after 1 second I wanted it to do that. And then I applied a pre-existing easing function. So the question was controlling the speed. So I used a pre-existing easing function. What you can do is you can manually create your own. Yeah. So on this one, same kind of thing. I want to go into the click of the button. You can do a little bit of code editing here as well. And this was called build this thing so that it actually gives me the IntelliSense. There we go. Begin. I now have the hello world, and it will play the storyboard when I click that button. So it's pretty easy to set that kind of thing up. So this gives you the ability to show how you can isolate the interface from the actual code behind. We have a number of best practices around things like model view controller, model view view model, where we have white papers that we published on that. So if that's something that you're wanting to do, Silverlight is a great way to set that up. So it looks like I've got about 25 minutes left. So we will jump on to the next demo.
You can do this on your personal computer, laptop.
Yeah, so I'm doing that right now. The question was, can you do this on your PC? This is what I'm doing right here. Everything is through an emulator. I do have a phone, and what you would do is you would just basically change where you want to deploy this. I noticed that this said, hey, something changed. Do you want to reload it? You would just say device instead of emulator, and then it'll deploy to the device. So it's very simple switching between the two of them. You would want to have a device if you're doing something like I mentioned with accelerometer, GPS, radio, one of the sensors that just doesn't exist on your computer. Something that would be easier to, or possible at all if you actually had the device itself. Yes?
So what are student experiences only for you? How does students react to that?
So the question was, what are students' experiences developing only for the emulator? It's actually really positive because it works exactly like you expect it to. We do have a program that gives them access to hardware. So if they, if they're looking at doing some development and they've got an application that they've developed in class that they want to put onto the marketplace, we can get them some loaner hardware through a program called the Mobile Loaner Program. So I think I've mentioned that in one of these guys, but you can email me I can get you signed up for that. We have a limited number of devices, but basically what we do is we rotate them through different schools, different sets of students. And so we can get you access to the actual hardware if you want to move beyond the capabilities of the emulator. For the first couple of months before the phone was actually released, there was only an emulator. And so developers have been working with that for a while. And the experience that I have with developers, both students and professionals, is that they're actually surprised because with mobile development, you don't always get the same thing. You have either a simulator or an emulator that uses your PC instead of the actual ROM. Mostly people are delightfully surprised at the fact that when you deploy it to the actual device, hey, it does exactly what it did on the PC itself. Yeah, and I think there was a question over here. Yeah.
You started with Visual Studio.
That's right.
2010, Express.
Yeah.
Then you went to Expression Blend.
Right.
Well, where did you use Silverlight from inside the Visual Studio?
Okay, so the question was, I started with Visual Studio, then I moved over to Expression Blend, but where did Silverlight come in? Silverlight is that combination of XAML and code behind that makes up this application. So both Visual Studio and Expression Blend are an editor that you can use to modify Silverlight. So it's using the Silverlight runtime inside of the phone so that I can do that development across that. And I was actually editing the same project, modifying it between the two of them.
That is this question. How does this program relate to PowerPoint? And are they compatible? Can you use this here and put it in PowerPoint?
With PowerPoint?
What's the difference between PowerPoint and this?
So as far as, I'm kind of having trouble with
the animation.
Oh, the animation. Okay, so the animation between the stuff that we're building here and the stuff that's inside of PowerPoint is completely different. Yeah, so not at all importable or bringing it back and forth, yeah.
You can make a presentation through this, like a storyline, or just...
So using Silverlight, you could create an application that is used for a presentation, and there's a great project called Silver Show that is specifically for that kind of thing, where you would use it so that you can present using a online kind of scenario, but they're not really meant to be an editor for one another yet. Okay, so in the interest of time, I want to keep going on this a little bit. So hopefully we will address some of your questions on here. If not, hopefully I will have time at the end of this. So let's go back to PowerPoint. I think the only thing that I am at here is, here we go, X and A. So in this case, we're going to create a game. So let me show you a quick example of what we're trying to do here. So this is direct output from my device. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run a game that I have already developed called Triangle Shooter, and that is the basis of what we're going to develop here. So I'm using the accelerometer as you move around, and when you collide into the enemy, you die. So basically, you try and get the high score. You get the high score over there. You get your current score over there. When you run into something, you lose, and you have to reset it. You start over again. So we're going to develop something similar to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with, again, Visual Studio. In this case, because this is XNA, Expression Blend is specifically set up to edit XAML, which is the front end on Silverlight and WPS. So XNA is a different paradigm. It's got loops that you run through for updating and drawing. So all of it is done inside of Visual Studio. It's all basically C# code. So we're going to go in here, and I'm going to go to New Project again. And I'm going to say XNA Game Studio, and you'll notice that you get a bunch of options on here. So if you wanted to do an Xbox 360 game, you could do that here. You could do a Windows game. We're going to do a Windows Phone game. And it's actually really easy to create a copy of your project for another platform and use compiler directives to change stuff like whether you're using a controller or not, the size of your display. So you could have one game that works across multiple platforms. So we're going to start with Windows Phone game, and I'm going to hit OK. Let's take a look at what we get here. So up on top here are all of the assemblies that I'm bringing over, so I can use audio, content, gamer services, graphics, input, touch. So all of those things just come over so I can use them. And then here's my namespace and the class that I'm starting with, the Game1 class. And this is really where it gets into it. So I've got a graphics device manager, which is a single construct that's shared across each different platform. So I don't have to worry about what my graphics hardware is, what I'm doing on either one of the platforms. because they've written drivers that work across all of the things with DirectX or with the phone or any of those. So if I switch between different platforms, I just use the same graphics device manager. It's just using it from a different assembly. Sprite Batch is for drawing two-dimensional graphics onto the screen. I highly recommend if you're going to do game development, you start with 2D because 3D gets really complicated really fast. So Sprite Batch is a great place to start. And here's my initialization for this. So I have initialization for all of my variables here. Here is where I load the content into my project. So load content would be things that are over here in my content project. Here's why I unload content. This is actually for unmanaged code. So if you're doing something that doesn't use the content manager, I've actually never put anything in unload content. So, you know, your mileage may vary on that one. And then we've got these two loops here, this update and this draw. And the basic construct here is that it will try and run update then draw in a cycle 30 times a second. It limits it to 30 times a second because it wants to be able to save some batteries on the device. And in the case that it can't do both of them within the 30th of a second, it will bias towards update. So that means that anything that you're doing with artificial intelligence, collision detection, any of that should be done in the update, because otherwise you'll miss stuff and stuff will fly through another enemy because the draw phase got skipped. So draw should only be used for putting stuff up onto the screen. Update should be used for basically everything else. So again, if I run this guy, it's going to pop over into the editor here, and I've got this lovely cornflower blue screen. It's actually oriented like this. You can see that you got your battery manager, your Wi-Fi on here. So the cornflower blue screen is because in my draw phase, I'm clearing the device with the color cornflower blue. So you can change that up. You can do whatever you want on here. You always do want to clear it because otherwise you'll leave trails, when you're doing stuff on there. So that's just kind of built in there for you. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to up over into Triangle Shooter, and I've got this nice triangle. That's actually an old one. So let me pop into another Windows Phone, XNA, Triangle Shooter. Content. Let me try that again. There, and desktop. Okay. So there's, I've got this triangle. It's basically this little black triangle. And I'm going to bring that over onto here and drop it into content. So just because go ahead and loads that in, and it's kind of tiny over here. Let me expand it a little bit. This is the properties for that file. The most important thing is this asset name right over here. That's what you're going to refer to this in your application. So anytime that you want to call this specifically, you're going to go to the content manager and say, I want triangle. So let's go ahead and set that up. First of all, we're going to need to create a container for it. We'll create a variable. It is of type texture 2D because it is a two-dimensional texture. And I'm going to call it triangle. Down in load content, I'm going to put something into that. So I'm going to say triangle is equal to content manager dot content.load. Content is a type of content manager. Content.load, and it is overloaded, so this shows how you can do templated types. So in this case, I'm saying specifically I want to bring back a texture 2D. And it's asking for the asset name. I am calling it triangle. So now I've loaded this into here. If I run this application, you'll notice that it doesn't really do anything, but it took a split second longer to load there because I'm loading it now. So let's go ahead and do something with that. Now I've got this texture 2D. Let's go ahead and draw it. So what I'm going to do is on here, I'm going to say sprite batch dot begin and sprite batch dot end. Because there's a lot of stuff that happens in between those two. If you're drawing 100 different items and then you draw one big rectangle over the top of them, it doesn't need to process any of the stuff that you drew because one of them is including all of it. So it has some optimization done between the begin and the end. So I'm going to use spritebatch.draw, and it's asking for a few different things. So in this case, it's asking for a texture 2D, a rectangle, or a color, but it's got 7 different overloads. This is the one that I like. Gives you a texture 2D, a vector 2, and for a position and a color. The texture 2D is you want to draw. The vector 2 is the position that you want to draw it at. So if I say 100, 100, and the color is the color that you want to tint it, because you know that the red guy is stronger than the blue guy. So we'll say color dot white, which doesn't tint it at all, and we'll run it. And now we got a little triangle up there. So what we've got now is basically we have everything being drawn on the screen. So what we do is we start refactoring this so that we can make some changes to it. From here, I've got this triangle. I am going to, you'll notice we've got this vector 2 for a position. I'm going to call this position. And I need to define position up here. So I'm going to say vector 2 position. And in my initialize, I'm going to initialize that. So I'm going to say position is equal to new vector 2. If I run that, I have successfully refactored it if it's showing up in the same spot, which it is. So now I've got this variable. And now that I have a variable, I can modify that variable. So let's go ahead and do that. And the way that we're going to modify the variable is we're going to interpret touch on the screen, and we're going to move it to wherever your touch point is. So that is actually a lot easier than it sounds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a for each. This is actually really cool. Anyone who uses Visual Studio, if you don't know about snippets, if you type out something like for each and then hit tab again, it's going to fill it all out. So I'm looking for touch location. I'm going to call it TL in touch panel.getState. And that gives you all of your touch locations. So if they're touching four different spaces on the phone, you're going to get 4 different touch locations here. So I actually, on my blog, which is listed on here, I've been going through some of these tutorials, and I go through how you can isolate it to the first touch point down, and I also go into how you can do some follow me methods and do some AI, so you can take a look at that later. But right now, we're just going to say, I'm going to assume there's only a single touch point at a time, and we'll just use whatever the last touch point is, and I say position is equal to tl.position. So we defined, basically 4 lines of code right there, including brackets, and now it moves around. So you can use that. The series that I've got on my blog goes through collision detection. It goes through the same kind of thing follow, because let's say that I'm doing a maze game and I have the start over here and the end over here. I won. You want it to actually have to follow whatever you're doing, not jump directly to it. So I walk through how to do that. And the great thing is you get to use math. So a lot of students think they'll never use it. Game development, you use so much math that you'll be so happy that they made you take those courses.
I don't know.
Relieved that you understand it and you don't have to take those courses again. So that's basically what we've got inside of XNA. So as kind of the from here, and I'll take questions in a second, but there's a lot of stuff available on the App Hub. That's basically where we've set all of our tutorials. We have an education space on there. We have a bunch of sample code up on there. So you can take a look at what you've got on there. We have starter kits with code snippets on them. So we have a platformer game that is actually cross-platform compatible. So you can download an Xbox 360 version, you can download a PC version, you can download a phone version and see how they compare. We've got the curriculum resources on here. On the last page on there, I've got a number of books that you can take a look at. Quite a few of those are free ebooks. So if you're interested in doing some of the stuff on there, if you want to use it as your textbook, students love you when you give them free books instead of having about a $140 copy of it. And for whatever reason, math books are always the really expensive ones. So we've got that, and then we also have the mobile learner program. So you would contact me for that if you're looking at doing some type of mobile in your classroom, or if you just have a great student who's looking at doing it on their own. That's a lot of times what will happen is they'll go into your class and say, I love what you're doing here. I'd like to do it on this platform. And always let them do that, because those are the motivated people who, they're going to be teaching the rest of the class. And I can get, specifically, if there's a single student in your class who wants to do it that way, I can get them a phone, even if you're not teaching phone development in your class. So this is the App Hub. Gives you a bunch of resources. This is also where you can download the tools. The education roadmap, we actually have a full set of 3 phases of developing games going all the way from basic game development to optimization. Yeah, question?
I was wondering, developers like to develop for multiple platforms.
Yes.
So how do you fit into that? Are there resources so that a developer can develop a game that can run on an iPhone as well as Windows 10 as well as
So I'm actually working with some researchers out of San Francisco State University who are developing a cross-platform compiler. There's also some applications who are working on getting something that will work against multiple platforms. The best thing that I have seen, there's a project called MonoTouch, and there's also a beta project called MonoDroid, which gives you the ability to use C# to develop for the iPhone or for the Android platform. We also have, one of the examples that I gave on here was Rob Miles. He has a C# yellow book. I think he also has, I don't know what color it is, but it's a Java to C# conversion guide. So you can see kind of how to move between those different platforms. And we do also have some resources available. If there's a specific one that you're looking at, contact me and I can get you those resources. So let's see, and this is the platform again that I was telling you about. So it gives you the full source code, all of the graphics, everything you've got on there under the Microsoft permissive license, which is if you release a source code, you have to release it under a compatible license. But if you want to just sell it, that's fine. And yeah, Q&A. Right here.
Does XML Studio 4 come with all the libraries for the Kinect and the avatars?
Okay, so the question was, XML Studio 4, does it come with libraries for the Kinect and for the avatars? It does come with a library for avatars. You can only use the avatars on the Xbox 360. You can use it on the phone, but you need a special agreement with Microsoft in order to be able to get that, so you can contact me and I can get you in touch with them if you've got an idea that needs to use the avatars. The Kinect right now has a couple of open source libraries that you can get access to, but there's no direct from Microsoft API for doing software development with the Kinect. I have talked to the XNA people and they would love to do that. It's just a matter of making that happen with the limited resources that they have. So eventually it should come out, but I've heard that the two APIs that were kind of open source made available are both excellent. So you can work on those as well. I had a question over here, yeah.
Does Flash integrate with this at all?
So does Flash integrate with the Windows Phone or with the development that I'm looking at? So right now there is no support for Flash on the Windows Phone. And the development that we're looking at here is either through Silverlight or XNA. So Flash is also a rich internet application development set. Basically, it's a tool for developing that. So it is parallel to some of the stuff that you're looking at with Silverlight. So a lot of the lessons that you learn around like Model View Controller or Model View View Model could be applied to both, but it is a separate project. Yeah, right up here.
We sort of touched on it, but is there a completely free path for students to go to develop if you don't want to go to the market?
Yes. So the question was, is there a completely free path for students to go from here all the way to development? And there's some information in the handout that I gave as well. Basically, what you would do is there's a free development toolkit for everybody. So you can get the Visual Studio 2010 Express for Windows Phone, free for everybody. The only price involved is a $99 registration fee for the marketplace, and that is waived for students. So they would go to dreamspark.com. So they get a 1-year membership. As long as they're a student, they can re-up that. Yeah, so you know, if it's the last day you're a student and you sign up for it, you still have a year. Yeah.
Page 2 of the handout has
yes.
module 1, module 2, special modules. Where they come from?
So I'm going to post basically this on my blog so you can take a look at it there. The modules come from some videos that we have online, and then the textbooks that I linked to from the front side there. So there's some reading that we recommend on there. There's some videos that you can watch so that you can do the presentations from that. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to get these resources. And we're continuing to work on this. I think you notice at the bottom it says Module 8 through 14 in progress. So we're working with some people up in Redmond to make that happen.
This is part of the, what's the title of the course there?
It's MS 450 Mobile Application Development.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quick question, actually C#, and we build projects and forms. Is there a migration so they could take it and we could say, here's your form, and we can move it to a mobile device? Do we have to rebuild it from scratch?
So the question was, is there a migration from building forms over to a mobile device?
Yes.
When you're working with forms, are you doing that with WinForms or are you doing that with WPF?
WinForms with individuals.
Okay, so if you're doing WinForms, there is not a direct migration. The code behind could work.
You can cut and paste the code.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It uses the same C# as the code behind.
There's no migration tool to actually take it and roll it into it.
No, there's no migration tool to roll it directly over. If you are using WPF, WPF is actually a superset of Silverlight. So all of the XAML that's inside of Silverlight will work in that. So as long as you stay with a certain set of controls, a lot of it can be copied and pasted over, but there's no migration tools.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And a lot of times you wouldn't want to do that because things that work well on the desktop don't necessarily work well on the mobile platform.
Rebuild it with my
Yeah, yeah. And that's actually last Tuesday. I actually just went through a set of different applications, and we looked at why is this one better than this one for the mobile platform. And if you take a look at Windows Mobile, that's kind of what we did when we thought, well, why don't we just make it a small Windows? And that didn't work, so we were completely redoing it with Windows Phone. Great. Any other questions? That's time. Yeah, so we're good.
Awesome time. Thank you, Kenny and Microsoft, for adopting the space this morning. Here's
No problem. Thank you very much.
certificate and a little